Welcome to Read and Learn English. Today, we will share a story that is not only about learning English, but also about life, courage, and growth. This is the story of Ginni Rometty, a woman who rose from a childhood full of struggles to become the CEO of IBM, one of the most famous companies in the world. As you listen and read, you will practice English, but you will also feel inspired to push forward in your own life. Let us begin with a question. Have you ever felt small? Have you ever felt like the world was too big and your problems too heavy? Ginni felt that way too. She was not born into wealth or comfort. She was not given an easy path. Her story is a story of contrast, darkness and light, struggle and triumph. That is why her journey can touch your heart and give you strength. As a young girl, she faced pain and fear. Her father left the family when she was still very small. Imagine the shock of watching the one who should protect you walk away. Her mother, now alone, had to raise 4 children without money, without help, and without rest. Life was heavy. Bills were not paid. The fridge was not always full. Ginni learned what struggle feels like very early in life. But here is the contrast. Instead of breaking down, her mother stood tall. She did not let her children see only despair. She showed them courage. She went to school, she worked, she studied at night. She carried her family with love and strength. For little Ginni, this was more than survival. It was a lesson. She saw that even in the darkest times, a person can fight forward. Think about that for a moment. Many children in such a situation might feel hopeless. They might give up on dreams. But Ginni did not. She held on to her mother's example. She learned that no matter how hard life becomes, there is always a way to move forward. This was the seed of resilience. When you face your own struggles, learning English, finding work, or building a better life, you may feel weak. But remember, weakness can be the start of strength. Pain can be the start of power. Ginni's story shows that your past does not decide your future. This is why her story matters to you today. You will see her rise from nothing to everything. You will see how each struggle shaped her into a leader. And as you follow her journey, you will see your own journey too. This is not just her story. It is a mirror for your story. Now let us step deeper into her world. Let us see how her early life built the foundation for the dreams she would later chase. We move now to her childhood, where the lessons of struggle and courage first began. Early life and family struggles. Ginni Rometty was born in Chicago, a busy city full of tall buildings, crowded streets, and dreams that seemed larger than life. But for her, life was not easy. She was the oldest of 4 children, and when she was still very young, her father walked away from the family. Imagine that moment. One day you are a family of 6, and the next day you are a family of 5, missing the one who should give strength, support, and protection. The house felt different, colder, and heavier. Her mother was left with 4 children to raise on her own. No partner, no steady income, and no easy way forward. Bills piled up on the kitchen table. The rent was always due, and money was never enough. The fridge was not always full, and sometimes she had to make one meal stretch for many mouths. For a child, this kind of life could bring fear. Ginni felt it deeply. She could see her mother's face, worried, tired, and sometimes close to tears. But she could also see something else: determination. Her mother made a decision. She would not let her children go hungry. She would not let them give up on their future. Instead, she went back to school. She studied at night, worked during the day, and still found time to care for her children. It was not easy. Many nights she stayed awake with books spread across the table while the children slept. Many mornings she woke early to prepare them for school, even when she had slept only a few hours. For young Ginny, this was more than just survival. It was an education in life. She saw her mother carry responsibility with courage, even when life was unfair. She saw that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the choice to keep going despite the pain. That lesson entered her heart and stayed there forever. The family still struggled. There were no vacations, no new clothes, no extra money. Other children at school seemed to live easier lives, with fathers who worked and mothers who stayed at home. The contrast was sharp. Ginny's life was different, harder, and sometimes lonely. But instead of breaking her, it built her. She learned early how to adapt, how to take responsibility, and how to keep moving even when life felt unfair. Sometimes she would look at her mother studying late into the night and think, if she can do it, I can too. This thought became a quiet fire inside her. She promised herself that she would not let hardship stop her. She would take the pain and turn it into strength. Think about that for a moment. Many of us, when faced with struggle, feel powerless. We think, why me? Why is life so hard? But Ginny's story shows something different. Struggle can teach us. Struggle can build us. It is like the fire that shapes metal. Without heat, metal is weak. With heat, it becomes strong. Chicago was not an easy place to grow up when money was short. But Ginny carried herself with quiet hope. She helped her siblings, learned to be independent, and worked hard in school. She understood that education could be the path forward. She also understood that hard times do not last forever, but strong people do. Her childhood was filled with contrast, fear and hope, hunger and strength, pain and love. The absence of her father left a hole, but the presence of her mother filled it with lessons of courage and determination. She did not live with comfort, but she lived with inspiration. This part of her life became the soil where seeds of resilience grew. Every time she saw her mother fight through hardship, those seeds grew stronger. Every time she faced disappointment, she learned to keep moving. Every time she felt the weight of struggle, she also felt the spark of inner strength. For Ginny, these were not just childhood memories. They were the beginning of her future. The little girl who watched her mother fight for the family would later use that same strength to fight in the business world. The challenges that seemed so heavy at the time were, in truth, shaping her into a leader. And so, the girl from Chicago carried both pain and power in her heart. She knew struggle, she knew fear, but she also knew courage. And slowly, she began to dream of a bigger life. A life where she could rise above hardship, create her own path, and lead others with the same strength she had once seen in her mother. These challenges became the foundation for her dreams. And soon, her next step would take her from surviving childhood to building her future through education. Education and first steps. After the struggles of her childhood, Ginny knew that education was the key to building a better life. She worked hard in school, always pushing herself, always remembering the strength of her mother. When it came time for college, she earned a place at Northwestern University, one of the most respected schools in America. For a girl from a family with little money, this was a dream, but it was also a heavy challenge. College was expensive. Life on campus was demanding. Many students had parents supporting them, but Ginni did not. She had to carry her own weight. At Northwestern, Ginni made a brave choice. She decided to study computer science and electrical engineering. At that time, very few women were in this field. The classrooms were full of men. The professors were mostly men. The world of technology seemed closed to young women like her. Walking into her first classes, she felt fear and doubt. Would she belong? Would she succeed? Would anyone take her seriously? But she remembered her mother's courage, and she reminded herself, if my mother could face her battles, then I can face mine. This thought gave her the strength to continue. Where others saw barriers, she saw opportunity. She decided to be different, to step into a space where women's voices were rare. Still, life at college was not easy. To pay for her studies, Ginni worked part-time jobs. She served food, she helped in offices, and she took whatever work she could find. While other students rested, she was working. While others had free weekends, she was earning money to survive. This created a contrast in her life, days full of study and nights full of work. It was exhausting, but it taught her discipline. It showed her that dreams require sacrifice. Her classmates sometimes lived with comfort, supported by families who could afford tuition and more. Ginni lived with pressure, counting every dollar, planning every expense. But instead of feeling small, she grew stronger. Each paycheck reminded her that she could take care of herself. Each exam passed reminded her that she could hold her place in a tough field. There were moments when she felt lost. The language of computers and codes was difficult. Mistakes came often. Sometimes she failed in solving a problem or building a program. But she never quit. Each failure was not the end, but a step toward learning. She told herself, I can learn, I can grow, and with every small success, her confidence grew. She also found inspiration in the vision of the future. She believed technology could change the world, and she wanted to be part of that change. She imagined a future where computers were not only machines, but tools that could transform people's lives. Holding on to that vision gave meaning to her hard work. At Northwestern, she did not just learn about computers, she learned about herself. She learned that fear does not mean stop. Fear means step forward. She learned that being one of the few women in the room was not weakness, it was power, because it gave her the chance to stand out. She learned that working to support herself was not a burden. It was proof that she could carry responsibility. Step by step, year by year, she moved closer to her degree. With each challenge, she grew tougher. With each sacrifice, she became more determined. By the time she graduated, she was not only a young woman with a diploma, she was a fighter, shaped by struggle, ready to enter the world. When she finally walked across the stage to receive her degree, she carried more than academic knowledge. She carried the lessons of courage, discipline, and resilience. She had survived the pressure of money, the challenge of a male-dominated field, and the weight of self-doubt. Now she was ready to face the next part of her journey. But life outside the university was a different battlefield. College had been hard, but the working world would be harder. Her first jobs would test her in new ways. She would have to prove herself again and again. She would have to stand strong in places where failure was not an option. Her journey was only beginning, and the real tests were still ahead. Entering IBM. In 1981, Ginni Rometty took her first big step into the professional world. She joined IBM as a systems engineer. For a young woman who had grown up in a small, struggling family, this moment felt almost unreal. IBM was not just a company. It was one of the biggest technology giants in the world. Its name carried weight. It was powerful, global, and respected. Walking into the IBM building for the first time, Ginni felt both excitement and fear. The place was huge, full of smart people in sharp suits, people who seemed to know everything. She thought to herself, "Do I belong here?" The contrast was sharp. Just a few years earlier, she was working part-time jobs to pay for her education. Now, she was inside the halls of IBM, surrounded by technology, innovation, and experts. She felt small compared to the size of the company. Yet, at the same time, she felt a quiet fire. She was ready to prove herself. Her role as a systems engineer was not easy. She had to design, understand, and support complex computer systems for clients. Every day brought something new. She made mistakes, sometimes small, sometimes big. At times, she felt embarrassed, unsure if she would ever be good enough. But instead of running from mistakes, she used them as teachers. Each error became a lesson, each challenge a chance to grow. In those early days, she discovered something important about herself. While others preferred safe and easy tasks, Ginni was drawn to the difficult ones. When a project looked messy or risky, she wanted to try it. While others stepped back, she stepped forward. This courage set her apart. Managers noticed. Teammates respected her. She was not perfect, but she was brave. It was not only her technical skills that made her shine. She had a way of listening to people, understanding their problems, and building trust. Clients saw her not just as an engineer, but as someone who cared about their success. She combined intelligence with empathy, and that combination made her stand out in a company full of talent. Still, life at IBM was demanding. She often worked long hours, sometimes late into the night, trying to finish projects. There were moments when she doubted herself. There were times when the pressure felt heavy, but each time she remembered her mother's example. Keep going, no matter how hard it gets. That memory pushed her through. The world inside IBM was big, but Ginni learned to make her place in it. She started small, step by step, task by task, project by project. Slowly, she built a name for herself. She was no longer just the young woman from Chicago. She was becoming a leader in the making. Her colleagues began to see her as someone who could handle responsibility. Her bosses gave her bigger projects. With every success, her confidence grew. But she never forgot the struggles of her past. They reminded her to stay humble, to keep working hard, and to never take success for granted. Looking back, it is clear that her choice to take on challenges others avoided became the turning point of her career. It was not talent alone that moved her forward, but her courage to step into the hard places. She showed that growth comes not from comfort, but from challenge. At IBM, she was beginning to climb. She had entered the world of technology at one of its highest levels. She was building her reputation. She was making her mark. Yet the path ahead was not smooth. For every victory, there would be struggles. For every step forward, there would be obstacles. But success does not come without trials, and her biggest tests were yet to come. Key struggles and turning points. The early years at IBM gave Ginni Rometty a place to learn, to grow, and to prove herself. But they were also years of struggle. The technology world of the 1980s and 1990s was dominated by men. In meetings, she was often one of the only women in the room. At times, she was overlooked. At times, her ideas were ignored until repeated by someone else. People doubted her, not because of her skills, but because of her gender. This was a sharp contrast. She had the talent, the education, and the drive, but still, she had to fight harder to be heard. Being underestimated can hurt, but it can also fuel determination. Instead of stepping back, Ginni stepped forward. She knew she had to earn respect not by words alone, but by results. Each project became her chance to show that she was more than what others assumed. Still, this path was not smooth. She faced failure. She faced rejection. She made mistakes, and at times she felt the heavy weight of doubt. There were nights when she asked herself, "Am I good enough? Do I really belong here?" Self-doubt whispered in her ear. But then she remembered her mother's fight, her own sacrifices, and the reason she had chosen this path. She was not here by accident. She was here because she worked for it. That reminder gave her the strength to continue, even when the road was rough. One of her big turning points came during a difficult project. The team was under pressure, the deadline was tight, the system was failing, and frustration filled the air. Many engineers pulled back, afraid of blame, but Ginni did the opposite. She stepped closer. She listened to her teammates. She encouraged them. Instead of pointing fingers, she asked, "How can we solve this together?" That moment revealed something important. Leadership was not about knowing all the answers. It was about bringing people together, even in the middle of chaos. She helped her team rebuild trust, work through the challenges, and finally deliver the project. It was not perfect, but it showed her true ability. Managers noticed her calm under pressure. Teammates remembered her support. That crisis turned into proof of her leadership. But the struggles continued. Some projects failed. Some clients were unhappy. There were times she felt crushed by mistakes. In those moments, it would have been easy to give up. But she treated failure like a teacher. Each time something went wrong, she asked herself, "What can I learn from this?" She turned pain into lessons. For example, after one failed deal, she realized she needed to improve her communication skills. She began to listen more deeply, to explain more clearly, and to make sure people understood not only what the technology could do, but how it could help them personally. Another time, after a system problem, she learned the value of preparation and backup plans. Slowly, these lessons built her into a stronger, wiser professional. The contrast in her journey was powerful. On one side, doubt, underestimation, and failure. On the other side, growth, learning, and success. This contrast is what made her different. Many people give up when they feel underestimated. Many people stop when they fail. Ginni refused to stop. She used every challenge to build herself higher. Another key turning point came when she was offered a promotion. At first, she doubted herself. She thought, Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I don't have enough experience. This fear of not being good enough is something many people feel, especially when faced with new opportunities. But a mentor told her something important. Growth and comfort do not live together. Those words stayed with her. She accepted the promotion, and by doing so, she pushed herself into new territory. In her new role, the challenges were bigger. She had to lead larger teams, manage higher risks, and face tougher decisions. Sometimes she felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure if she would fall or fly. But each time she chose to jump, and each time she learned to fly a little higher. She also learned an important truth. Leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about helping others shine. She made a habit of lifting up her teammates, giving them confidence, and creating space for their ideas. When her team succeeded, she succeeded. This style of leadership became her strength. There were also cultural challenges. Being a woman in leadership meant breaking old ideas about who could lead in technology. Some people doubted her simply because they had never seen someone like her in such a role. Instead of being angry, she let her results speak. She showed again and again that skill, courage, and vision matter more than stereotypes. Her career was like climbing a mountain. The path was steep, the rocks were sharp, and sometimes the weather was harsh. But with each step, she grew stronger. Every struggle was like training for the next climb. Every turning point prepared her for something greater. Through these years, she built a reputation as someone who was not afraid of hard problems. If there was a challenge others wanted to avoid, she often volunteered. This made her different. It showed that she was not only capable, but also fearless. That reputation would later open doors to even bigger opportunities. Looking back, it is clear that these struggles were not just obstacles. They were the shaping tools of her life. They taught her resilience. They taught her courage. They taught her how to lead, not with fear, but with vision and heart. Through every setback, she grew stronger, preparing her for leadership. Rising through the ranks. By the time Ginni had faced years of challenges, mistakes, and victories, she had built a strong reputation inside IBM. People knew her as someone who did not run from problems. She was the one who stepped into difficult projects and helped her team push through. Slowly, this courage and consistency carried her upward. Step by step, she began rising through the ranks of one of the world's largest companies. Her early promotions came because of her ability to manage accounts that others avoided. Some clients were demanding, some projects seemed impossible. Many employees preferred safer, easier work. But Ginni was different. She chose the hard assignments. One of her biggest chances came when she was asked to manage a very large client account. If she failed, the company would lose trust and money. If she succeeded, it would show that she was ready for greater responsibility. The pressure was high, but Ginni stepped into the role with calm determination. At first, things did not go smoothly. The client was unhappy with IBM's service, deadlines were missed, and the relationship was broken. Ginni knew she could not fix it overnight. She spent long hours with the client, listening to their frustrations. She admitted mistakes. She promised improvement. More importantly, she made sure her team felt supported and motivated. Slowly, trust began to return. The client saw that she was honest, reliable, and committed. With time, the account was not only saved, but grew stronger. Inside IBM, this became a story of success that highlighted her leadership style. The contrast in her approach was clear. An ordinary manager might have focused only on short-term solutions, fix the problem quickly, hide mistakes, and move on. Ginni, however, showed a visionary approach. She looked at the long term. She wanted to rebuild trust, not just solve problems. She understood that leadership was not about hiding weakness, but about facing it with honesty and courage. This difference set her apart. As the years went by, Ginni was given more responsibility. She began leading bigger teams and eventually entire divisions. Each time, the stakes grew higher, but each time, she proved she could handle it. What made her special was not only her technical knowledge, but also her ability to inspire people. Her teams wanted to work with her because she gave them confidence. She made them believe they could achieve more than they imagined. One of her most important roles was helping IBM through times of change. Technology was moving fast. Old systems were no longer enough. Clients wanted new solutions, new ideas, and new ways to use technology in business. IBM needed leaders who could guide this transformation. Ginni became one of those leaders. She worked on projects that pushed IBM into new areas, such as consulting and services. This was a big change for the company, which had long been focused mainly on hardware and machines. Many employees felt uncertain. Change is never easy, and resistance was strong. But Ginni knew that survival required transformation. She reminded her teams that holding on to the past was dangerous, and that the future belonged to those who dared to adapt. Again, the contrast was clear. An ordinary manager might have resisted change, protecting old systems and old ways. Ginni was a visionary leader. She saw the bigger picture. She encouraged her teams to imagine the future, not fear it. She explained that success was not about staying comfortable, but about moving forward, even when it felt uncertain. Her ability to guide people through transformation became one of her greatest strengths. In meeting rooms, she spoke with calm conviction. With clients, she explained complex technology in simple, clear ways. With her teams, she listened, encouraged, and lifted spirits. She was not just managing tasks, she was inspiring people. This ability was tested many times. There were projects that failed, moments when the company lost money, and times when critics were loud. But Ginni never allowed setbacks to stop her. Each failure was treated as another lesson. Each challenge became a chance to grow stronger. Slowly, people inside and outside IBM began to see her as a leader who could be trusted during both calm times and storms. Her steady rise was not built on shortcuts or luck. It was built on years of courage, resilience, and vision. She had started as a young systems engineer, unsure of herself, making mistakes, and learning step by step. Now she was guiding entire divisions of IBM, shaping the company's direction, and proving that she was more than capable of carrying responsibility. The contrast between her past and her present was powerful. The little girl who had once watched her mother struggle to keep food on the table was now leading one of the most respected technology companies in the world through major transformations. She had gone from surviving hardship to driving innovation. As she continued to rise, one truth became clear. Leadership was not a position. It was a practice. It was the daily choice to face challenges, support people, and keep moving forward. That was how Ginni led, and that was why people followed her. Her leadership journey was about to reach the highest level. Becoming CEO of IBM. In 2012, history was made. After more than 3 decades of hard work, persistence, and vision, Ginni Rometty became the first female chief executive officer of IBM. For a company that had existed for over 100 years, this was not just a promotion, it was a milestone. The announcement echoed across the business and technology world, but behind the headlines and celebrations, the moment carried deep emotion for Ginni herself. She remembered the girl she once was, the young daughter of a broken home in Chicago. She remembered the pain of watching her father walk away, the sight of her mother working long hours to keep 4 children clothed and fed. She remembered the times when money was so tight that every meal felt like an achievement. And now, that girl, who once felt small and uncertain, was stepping into the highest office of one of the largest companies in the world. The contrast could not have been greater. As she sat in her office on the day the announcement was made, the weight of the responsibility settled over her. The title of CEO was not just an honor, it was a mountain. IBM was a company of more than 400,000 employees, serving clients in every corner of the globe. Its history stretched back a century, and it had played a role in shaping the very foundation of modern computing. To lead such an institution was both thrilling and terrifying. Fear was there, quietly pressing at the edges of her mind. She asked herself, could I truly carry this weight? Could I meet the expectations of so many? What if I fail? These questions were natural, and they reminded her that leadership was not about being fearless, but about acting with courage despite fear. She knew that self-doubt was a part of every great journey, and she refused to let it control her. At the same time, there was hope. Hope that she could take IBM into the future. Hope that she could guide the company through one of the most disruptive times in technology. The world was shifting rapidly. Cloud computing, artificial intelligence, big data, and new startups were changing the rules. IBM could not stay the same. It needed to transform. And Ginni believed she could be the leader to make that transformation real. Her vision was bold. She wanted IBM to move beyond its traditional image of big hardware and machines. She saw a future where IBM would lead in areas like cloud services, artificial intelligence, and analytics. She imagined Watson, IBM's AI system, becoming a global symbol of innovation, helping doctors fight cancer, guiding businesses to smarter decisions, and solving problems once thought impossible. This vision gave her energy. It reminded her that leadership was not about holding on to the past, but about creating the future. The symbolism of her appointment as the first female CEO of IBM was not lost on her. In meetings and interviews, many people spoke about how historic this was. Few women had ever led companies of IBM's size, especially in the male-dominated world of technology. For young women across the world, Ginni's new role became a message. The glass ceiling could be broken. Dreams were possible, even in spaces where women had long been excluded. But Ginni did not want to be remembered only as the first female CEO. She wanted to be remembered as a leader who transformed IBM and left it stronger for the future. Her gender was part of the story, but her vision and actions would define her legacy. Still, she carried the quiet knowledge that her success could inspire millions of women who would come after her. The night after her appointment, when the celebrations were quiet and the press had moved on, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She thought of her mother, who had fought so hard to raise her children alone. She thought of her younger self, walking nervously into her first day at Northwestern University, unsure of whether she belonged in computer science. She thought of her first day at IBM in 1981, sitting at her desk as a systems engineer, intimidated by the size of the company. Each of these moments had led her here. Each struggle had prepared her for this role. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy. In fact, it would likely be harder than anything she had faced before. The business world was unforgiving, and IBM's challenges were huge. But she also knew something else. Resilience had been built into her character since childhood. She had faced storms before, and she had survived them. She believed she could do it again, this time not just for herself or her family, but for an entire company and the people it served. In her first speech as CEO, she spoke with clarity and conviction. She did not promise quick fixes or easy wins. Instead, she spoke about transformation, about courage, and about the importance of reinventing the company for a new age. Her words carried weight because they came from someone who had lived through struggle, who understood what it meant to fight for progress. Employees across IBM felt both the seriousness of her message and the hope behind it. The image of that moment remains powerful. A woman from humble beginnings, now standing at the peak of one of the most respected companies in the world. The young girl who once wondered if she could ever rise above hardship had become the leader of a 100-year-old institution. She was proof that resilience, vision, and courage could carry someone from the smallest beginnings to the highest stage. But she also knew that this was only the beginning. Leadership was not about reaching the top. It was about carrying the weight once you got there. And IBM was a giant company in a time of great change. Every decision she made would affect thousands of employees, millions of clients, and the company's legacy itself. The pressure was enormous, and the storms were already gathering. Becoming CEO was not the end of her story. It was the start of a new, far more difficult chapter. As she looked out across the future, she understood the truth. This mountain would not be easy to climb. It was full of storms, setbacks, and battles. But she was ready. She had been preparing for this climb her entire life. But leading IBM was not easy. It was a mountain full of storms. Leadership, struggles, and criticism. When Ginni Rometty became CEO of IBM, the world celebrated. But the applause soon gave way to the heavy reality of leadership. Being at the top meant carrying every problem, every failure, and every doubt on her shoulders. For Ginni, the early days as CEO were filled with both excitement and storm clouds. IBM was a company in transition. The world of technology was moving fast, too fast for many big companies to keep up. Small startups were becoming giants overnight. Cloud computing was changing the way businesses stored and used information. Artificial intelligence was moving from science fiction into daily life. To survive, IBM had to reinvent itself. Ginni saw this clearly. She knew the company could not live on its old successes. It had to step into the future. But not everyone agreed with her vision. The public, the media, and even some investors began to doubt her leadership. IBM's stock price was falling, quarter after quarter. Every financial report seemed to bring more bad news. Headlines shouted about decline. Articles asked if IBM had lost its way. Some critics even questioned whether Ginni was the right person to lead. The contrast was sharp. Her bold vision of a new IBM versus the harsh reality of numbers on the page. The criticism hurt, but Ginni refused to hide from it. She faced the doubts directly, often telling her teams, "We are not defined by today's numbers, but by the future we are building." For her, the real measure of success was not in short-term results, but in long-term transformation. She believed that IBM had to shift its focus to areas like artificial intelligence, cloud services, and data. These were the technologies that would shape the future of business and society. She bet big on Watson, IBM's AI system. It was not just a piece of software, it was a symbol of change. She believed Watson could transform healthcare by helping doctors fight diseases like cancer. She believed it could guide businesses to smarter decisions and even make government services more efficient. To many, these ideas sounded like dreams, but to Ginni, they were necessary steps toward the future. Still, the outside world often saw only the struggles. Every time IBM missed financial targets, the criticism grew louder. Some investors grew restless. Some employees felt uncertain. Ginni had to stand strong in the storm. It was not easy. There were days when the weight of criticism was heavy, days when she questioned herself in the quiet of her office. But leadership, she knew, was not about being perfect. It was about holding steady when others wavered. Inside IBM, she focused on culture. She told employees that transformation was not only about technology, but also about people. She encouraged teams to be bold, to take risks, and to learn from failure. She reminded them that IBM had reinvented itself many times in its long history. If it could survive before, it could survive again. Slowly, she built trust among those willing to fight for the company's future. The contrast between outside perception and inside reality grew sharper with each passing year. While the world focused on stock prices and missed targets, Ginni focused on planting seeds that would take years to grow. She poured resources into cloud services, even though IBM was late compared to competitors like Amazon and Microsoft. She pushed AI forward, even though many questioned its practical use. She believed these investments would define IBM's next century. Resilience became her daily practice. When the media painted her as a failing CEO, she reminded herself of the lessons she had learned as a child. She had watched her mother survive when everything seemed lost. She had faced doubt before, as a young woman in computer science, as a new engineer at IBM, as a manager in difficult projects. Each time, she had pushed through. This was no different. Her leadership was not flashy. She was not the type to chase headlines or seek personal glory. Instead, she carried herself with quiet strength. She listened more than she spoke. She encouraged others to shine. And even when critics doubted her, she held to her vision with calm determination. This quiet resilience became her greatest strength. Over time, some began to see the impact of her strategy. IBM became a leader in hybrid cloud solutions. Watson gained recognition in healthcare and business. The company, though smaller than before, was more focused on the future. The road was long, and the struggles never disappeared, but the seeds of transformation had been planted. Still, leadership always carries pain. For every step forward, there were steps back. For every success, another challenge appeared. But through it all, Ginni's courage never wavered. She accepted criticism as part of the job, but she refused to let it define her. She knew that true leadership is tested not in times of praise but in times of doubt. The image of Ginni during those years is powerful. A leader standing in the storm, facing waves of criticism, yet refusing to bend. Her vision was larger than quarterly numbers. She believed in a future that others could not yet see. That belief, that resilience, is what carried her forward. Even in hard times, her courage shined. Lessons for life and growth. Ginni Rometty's story is not only about IBM or technology. It is a story about life, courage, and growth. From her childhood in Chicago to leading one of the world's largest companies, every step of her journey teaches us lessons we can apply in our own lives. These lessons are simple but powerful, and they show the difference between giving up and continuing the fight. The first lesson is resilience. From a young age, Ginni faced challenges that could have stopped her. Her father left the family. Her mother struggled to raise 4 children alone. Money was tight, and life was not easy. Many people in that situation might have felt hopeless. They might have given up on dreams. But Ginni watched her mother fight every day. She learned that strength is not the absence of hardship. It is moving forward despite it. Resilience means keeping your heart and mind strong, even when life feels heavy. In our own lives, we can practice resilience by facing small challenges every day, refusing to give up, and learning from difficulties instead of fearing them. The second lesson is courage. Ginni made brave choices at every stage of her life. She chose to study computer science, a field with very few women at the time. She stepped into difficult projects at IBM that others avoided. She accepted leadership roles that felt overwhelming. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite fear. Every time we choose a path that feels risky or unknown, we grow. We learn that fear can be a signal, not a stop sign. For English learners, for example, speaking a new language in front of others can be scary. But courage means trying anyway. Ginni's life reminds us that stepping forward builds strength, skill, and confidence. The third lesson is persistence. Life is full of doubt, and people will often underestimate you. Ginni experienced these many times. In male-dominated classrooms, in early projects at IBM, and even as CEO, people questioned her ability. But she kept going. She learned from mistakes, improved step by step, and refused to quit. Persistence is the quiet decision to continue, even when results are slow or hard to see. In our own journey, whether learning English, starting a new job, or building a dream, persistence matters more than immediate success. Small, consistent actions create long-term change. The fourth lesson is the power of reinvention. Ginni did not stop at being a successful engineer or manager. She transformed IBM, guiding the company into artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and new technologies. Reinvention means being willing to leave comfort behind and embrace change. Life rarely stays the same. Opportunities come when we adapt, learn, and grow. For learners, this means trying new methods, practicing new skills, or changing habits when needed. The ability to reinvent yourself keeps you relevant, strong, and ready for new challenges. A fifth lesson is the importance of helping others and building trust. Throughout her career, Ginni lifted her teams, encouraged colleagues, and created environments where people could succeed. Leadership is not only about personal success, it is about helping others shine. In life, whether at work, school, or in personal relationships, supporting others builds respect, loyalty, and meaningful connections. Trust and empathy are powerful tools that multiply your impact. The contrast in her life makes these lessons even clearer. Giving up leads to regret, fear, and lost opportunities. Continuing the fight, even in the face of doubt, builds character, skill, and possibility. The same challenges that once seemed impossible become the very experiences that shape our strength. Ginni's childhood hardships became the foundation of resilience. Her fears in college and at IBM became opportunities for courage. Her doubts and mistakes became lessons for persistence. And every reinvention she led showed the power of vision and adaptation. Applying these lessons is simple, but requires commitment. When you feel afraid, take a small step forward. When you face failure, ask yourself, what can I learn? When people doubt you, focus on what you can control, your effort, your growth, and your attitude. When life changes, embrace it rather than resist it. And always, remember to help others along the way. Each of these choices builds a life of courage, resilience, and purpose. For English learners, these lessons are especially valuable. Learning a new language is a challenge that requires patience, courage, and persistence. Mistakes are inevitable, but they are not failures. They are lessons. Every day you practice, every word you speak, every sentence you write is a step forward. Just as Ginni grew from a young girl with struggles to a global leader, you can grow from a beginner in English to a confident speaker. The principles are the same. Keep moving, stay brave, and never give up. Ginni's story also teaches us to look beyond immediate success. It is easy to focus only on results, grades, or recognition. But the true journey is in the effort, the learning, and the growth. Success is not only about what you achieve, it is about who you become while striving. Every challenge she faced, every criticism she received, and every risk she took shaped her character. This reminds us that life is a series of lessons, and each moment, whether easy or hard, contributes to our growth. Finally, her journey shows that leadership and life are about vision and persistence. You may start small, from humble beginnings or with few resources. You may face fear, doubt, and criticism. But by being resilient, courageous, persistent, and willing to reinvent yourself, you can reach heights you never imagined. Ginni's life proves that the size of your beginnings does not define the size of your future. Her journey is also our journey. Every struggle we face can teach us resilience. Every fear we confront can teach us courage. Every mistake we make can teach us persistence. Every change we embrace can teach us reinvention. And every act of helping others can show us the power of trust and leadership. Ginni's story is a mirror for all of us. It shows that life is not about avoiding storms, but about learning to navigate them. It reminds us that the road is long, full of challenges, and sometimes uncertain, but it is also full of lessons, growth, and possibilities. By following these lessons in our own lives, we can become stronger, braver, and more capable of shaping our future, just as she shaped hers. If Ginni Rometty's story inspired you, imagine what you can achieve in your own life. Every challenge you face, every fear you overcome, and every step you take toward your goals is a part of your journey, just like hers. Here, on Read and Learn English, we bring you stories like this to help you learn English while discovering life-changing lessons. By watching, listening, and reading along, you can improve your English skills step by step, just as Ginni improved herself through persistence and courage. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story that can inspire, motivate, and teach you. Remember, your journey matters. Every day is a chance to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. Start today and take one step closer to your dreams. Join our community and let's learn and grow together.